Good everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. So today we will be talking about data modeling. So in my previous lectures, I covered Salesforce fundamentals. So where we talked about multi-tenant architecture, we touched briefly on MVC and Aura framework, and then we talked about some of the aspects of dev console and when to write a code, when not to write a code, right? So today we will be talking about data modeling. That's one of the important aspects of platform dev exam as well. Irrespective of platform dev or not, you need to know about data modeling when you're working with Salesforce. So let's dive in. So what we're going to do as usual, so we will be covering data modeling from Trailhead. So because they laid down the structure very neatly. So we're going to talk about custom and standard object, and then we will be talking about lookup and master detailed relationships, and we will be looking at Schema Builder, right? So a lot to cover. Let's get started. I hope you're excited. So let's dive in. So the first thing first, you need to have your free org, right? So as I always mention that you need to get your free org. It's very easy to sign up with the free org. So you need to go to developer.salesforce.com and then sign up for your free org, right? Okay, so we have two kinds of, we're going to talk about today, the two types of objects, standard object and custom objects, right? So when you talk about the standard object, Salesforce ships these objects out of the box. So when I talk about the standard objects, they are accounts, they are campaigns, they are opportunities, they are leads, they are contacts. These are the standard objects. And custom objects is something which you create. Now you might wonder, what is an object, right? An object, so if you are someone who came from a database background, right, then you probably know what a table is, right? So object is similar to a table. So let me give you an example. Let's take an example of an account, right? So account is an object which equates to a table in a database. And then we talk about fields, which are like columns. Like an account can have name, address, like the billing address, and then the customer name, right? So those are the fields, and then you fill in each rows in the table, right? Like you have accounts of U.S. corporation, then you have Australian Coopers Limited, so those were the records. That's what we call in Salesforce. So the way you can look at the objects and the field information, there are two ways we can look at using Schema Builder. I will explain to you in a minute. And then the other option is you can go to individual object and fields using an object manager. So we are in the setup, right? So the way to go to setup, so by going to the scarecrow icon and click on setup, it will take you to this page. So go to object manager, or you can even, if you don't want it to go from here, you can even go, what you can do, other option is you can search from here. Sorry, it's just taking a minute. Okay, so we can search from here, right? So one more thing, since we're here, right? So we do have big objects and external objects, so I'm not gonna talk about those today. So we will stick to, these are the two main things you need to pay special attention when you're doing platform dev one, right? So we are an object manager page. So you can see different objects. This is the API name. API name is very important because using the API name, you will actually use your fetch the data. Say, for instance, if you're using a SQL query to get a specific record from an account, you need to use the API name. The label don't make any difference, right? So let's jump into account, which is a standard object, right? And you can see on your left hand side there are fields and relationships. So you go here. So you can see that there are few fields which are out of box, and some are system fields, like they're created by last modified date, and those are system fields. And there are standard fields, so you can't delete the standard fields. So for instance, let me see, there's no option to delete the standard field, right? But on the other hand, and as well as these are other out-of-box field active, you can't delete it. But the good news is you can create a custom fields, or even on the standard object, and if you don't like it, or for whatever reason, if the business requirement changes, you can delete those fields, right? So the way to create a custom field on a standard object, by going to new, there's a new button here, right? And sorry, just take a minute. So these are the different data type. So we have order number, formula field. Formula is very important. We will be covering formula in later lectures, right? We have roll up. We will look at lookup relationship and master detail today. So what we're gonna do, so we're gonna look at text just to explain what it means to create a custom field on a standard object. So you can pick any field you want. Just for a demonstration purpose, I'm just picking as text, and I'll just call it as a test field, right? So see, the field label is not important. The API names that matters the most. So you can the field name that matters the most, right? So you can actually choose if you want it required. If you click on require, right? So you're gonna make it mandatory. So what happens is that when you are filling up a record on account, right? So if you, for some reason, if you decide not to fill this information on a test field, you can't save your account record information. It will complain that test field is mandatory, so please enter value inside the field, right? So unique means if you do not want to have duplicates, so you can make it unique. So for now we keep as default, right? So go to next. And so if you wanted to this fields to be visible on every profile, just make it visible to all, just for the sake of simplicity, and click on next. And if you want these fields to be added to all this page layout, we might as well just keep it as default. Click on save. So you can see that you have added something called test. If you can't find it for whatever reason, right? So you can go to quick find and just search for test, right? There you are, you have a test field, and you can see you can delete it if you want, or if you wanted to change the properties, you can go to edit and do that, right? Pretty straightforward. These are the account fields, which are the standard object, so which is shipped by Salesforce out of box. So yeah, so this is what I wanted to talk about, the standard object, and you'll be working with the standard object most of the time. That being said, there are occasions where you wanted to create a custom object. Say for instance, let me give you a scenario, right? So this is my org. This is an org which is set up for a brewing company, a fictitious brewing company called Wilson Breweries, right? So I wanted to create a custom object. I wanted to create a custom object called Porter, where that object will store information about different porter beers, like porter name, beer name, and the price, right? Just a very basic information. So just to show you how to create a custom field, right? So what we're gonna do, so the requirement is we need to create a custom object called the porter beer, right? And then we need to add two fields, right? One is the name, and one is the price of the beer, right? So let's dive in. So the way you can do, by going to Object Manager, and then you can go to Create. We have a Create here, right? And we can go to Custom Object, and we type here Porter beer. It's called Porter. It's a plural. Beer. So I'll just put it there, right? And I wanted this to have reports, field tracking, tick all the options, right? And then check this one, and save. Because when you do this one, right, it will bring up a next screen, so which helps you to customize the tab and kind of stuff. I'll show you what I mean by that. So here you are. So you see this tab because we take that option, right? And you can actually change the tab style. So I wanted to have a phone, for instance, right? And you can put the description. It's always good to have description. So this is for porter beer, right? And click on next. And I just keep the default option, right? And I click on next, and it's included in every apps, right? Sales, standard, and everything. So click on next. Sorry, save. So we have a porter beer custom object created. Wow, that's great, right? So now you remember that when I talked about API name. So this is what I mentioned by API name. So this is very important because this is where you use to fetch the information, right? So what I meant by that, I'll show you in a minute. So we have few fields created here, right? So we have a porter beer name. These are all the system generated fields, and you can't actually delete it. So let me edit this one, and I make this field as order number, and I say the display format is 1000, and starting number I just put at 1000, right? Because I want this to be an okay. I just forget about this display format for now. Right, so we just keep it simple and just made it order number, right? So now we need a name. As I mentioned, that we need two fields, name, and we need information about the pricing, right? So the way you create a field is pretty much similar to what we've done for the standard object, right? So you go to new, and for the name, we need to have a text field. And so we got the text field here, and we go next, and we just put name. Let's put porter name, right? Length we keep 255. Is it required? Yes, absolutely. We need it, and you can put the text. This is name. Okay, so name of porter. So this is for hover over text. So I'll show you why we need a help text. So we keep it as required, we go next, and we go next, and we do save, right? So we created one field called porter name. Now we need another field that's called the price, or porter price, what we put, and that's a currency field. So the way to do it, similarly, so we go to currency, and we go next, and we put as porter amount, and we put it as porter amount, right? And we need this field, right? And we go to next, and we go to next, and we save, right? So we have two fields created now. One is called as the name, and another one is called as the amount. So let's dive into the custom object to see how it looks like. So the way you can add records, right? So you need to go to, you can add using Apex query, right? Or you can using a graphical user interface, which I'm going to show now. I won't be showing Apex, but if you want, I can show you, right? But it's not really needed at this time. So let's stick to graphical user interface. Yeah. So what I'm gonna do, so I will go to, you know what, I will show you in Apex anyways, right? Just consider it as a bonus lecture for you guys. Okay, so what we're gonna do, so we're gonna go to this tic-tac-toe icon, right? And so sorry, it's my org is kind of slow. So Porter, so we have this Porter beers, right? So click on this one, and so we got so this is what it takes you to the default recently viewed. So pretty much we got nothing here, right? So we change it to all, and we see we got nothing here. So let's add. Let's go to new, and see the name of the porter beer. This is what I mentioned. Why we need a help text. So, and you hover over to the porter amount. It's very handy, right? Because you have different names, right? So it's always it's a best practice to put the help text, because it will give your user a better user experience. Because rather than asking someone, oh, look, what is this field for, right? It's always a good practice when you're designing a solution to give a better user experience, so the user don't have to rely on much external assistance, right? Okay, so porter name, let's, I think let's, I know this porter because I drink a lot, this porter, so Baltica. It's a Russian porter. Pretty nice, almost close to it's close to less than 8% beer. So in New Zealand, we get it for, so it's a 500 ml bottle. So we get it for like $4. So we're gonna do this, right? And click on save. So as you can see that the porter and these are the mandatory fields. So what we're gonna do, so let me delete this one, right? And then try to save it. You'll see we get an error. So you remember that I ticked that option that which is required. So this is what it means, that it's a mandatory beer. So let's put it back, Baltica, or you can cancel it. So as you can see that we got this red asterisk next to porter. So that means that it is required. These fields are mandatory. Very handy, right? So this is how you can do in a graphical user interface. Now we can do that using code. As I said, that this is a bonus lecture for you guys. So let's jump into the code. So what we're gonna do, we go to this setup and developer console. And because this is a platform dev, right? So you guys need to know how to write code. So let's write an Apex class. Okay, let's forget about an Apex class. We're gonna do this in an anonymous window, right? So what we're gonna do, so let's create an object, porter object first, right? So I need to know what's the name of the porter, right? So the way I can do that, so what we can do here, we go to our setup again, right? And I need to know the fields API name, and I need to know the name of an object, right? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to setup and go to object manager, and we go to we just call it porter, right? So this is the name I'm interested at, right? So what we're gonna do, so we go to fields, so I got a field here, right? And let's create a dummy object, a porter beer. So we're gonna see PB equals to new, right? And this is just for test. I mean, in an actual scenario, when I'm writing a class method, I'll put this under try catch, right? For now, forget about it, because it's just we are just testing it. But please make sure that when you do any Apex code, right, any kind of insert, please put under try catch, right? Because if it fails for some whatever reason, you need to know why it's failing, right? So we put PB dot, and since it's case insensitive, so you don't have to worry about the case, but it's good to have consistency, right? So we're gonna put porter name. So see, this name is relevant because this is a field label. So just put porter name. So we put PB dot, right? So just put it I like to have consistency, right? If you can put lowercase or either uppercase, it's up to you, but please make sure that it's consistent. So let's put DB beer, DB porter, right? Just random name, right? So PB dot. So we're gonna have currency, right? Amount. So copy this boy here and copy it here. Just put it. Let's put it at $6, right? And now let's insert this boy, right? PB. And let's see if it works. So we're gonna run it. If you want to open the log, execute. So go back here, right? So let's see if we got a debug. We got none. So I hope it's executed, right? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to the Porter beers, right? So there you go. We got this one. Let's open this. So DB Porter, $6. That's what we wanted, right? So you can do this using a code. So I just showed you two ways using graphic interface or using an Apex code. So this is what we have done. We have added a record to this custom object. So it got two records here, right? So, okay, so now what we're gonna do, let's link this to an account. So we're gonna talk about relationship, lookup relationship and master detail relationship. So lookup relationship, right? When you talk about lookup relationship, it's like a casual relationship, right? So you have a record, and when you have a record, so you have a master. So if you have a lookup relationship, say, so usually, okay, let me create a lookup relationship. You will understand. Let's go to new. So lookup relationship. Next, related to account, right? Next, just put it owner. Okay, company. Just put it as company, right? You can put whatever name you want. This is linked to company. So you can keep the default option. So default option is clear the value, right? So next, right, and it's visible to everything, every profile. So next, and next, right? And save. Now I'll tell you one interesting thing with this one. So let's go to let's create another one, right? Okay, so that's, so now let's refresh it. Sometimes it doesn't get refreshed properly, and then you don't see a field, right? So now you got a field. So now the difference you see here in lookup relationship, right? So you can add porter name, which is mandatory, and you can add, you have to add porter amount, but you choose not to add company. It's optional, right? So let's say, let me see if I can edit this one and add it. Right, I wanted to link to United Oil Corporation, and I save it, right? So a lookup relationship is more like a casual relationship. If you choose not to add the value, that's fine, right? The same, but in case of master detail relationship, it's more like a parent-child relationship. When you specify, you have to populate that value. It is mandatory. There is no options. The reason why I'm telling you is that because in master detail, right, if you delete a parent, right, the child will get deleted automatically. But in this case, in lookup relationship, if you delete an account, right, so if you delete this account, so this record won't get deleted. What happens is that this will get blanked out. That's pretty much happens. So master detail is more tightly coupled, and lookup relationship is more loosely coupled, if you know what I mean, right? So let's see if we can convert a lookup field to master detail. You can, but there is a catch to it. I'll show you what I mean by that. It's a very exciting topic. You need to know because these are fundamentals, and you always create a lookup or master detail relationship on a child object, right? Because this is a child object and account is the parent object. So So what we have is a company. So you go to edit, and you will see one thing here. Change the field type, right? You can change it. It gives you an impression that, oh yeah, I can change it, right? You think, oh, fantastic, I can change it. Right, let's see what happens. Right, okay, it's fantastic. You can say, right, okay, I want to save, just to. You can't. Because, you know why? We have two records here, right? And one of the requirement of master detail relationship is that a record must contain a value on a parent. What I mean by that, every record should have the company value in a portable object. So in our case, we have value only on this specific record, but if you go to this one, we got none. So let's change this to okay, United Oil Gas Corporation, save it. Now let's go and change the field, and let's see if we can do that, right? So let's go to Object Manager, and let's go to Porter, beers, and let's go to our fields, and let's change this company to master detail. It's very easy, you just click on edit and change field type. And now let's go to change the master detail and go save, right? You'll see the difference. There you are. You could able to save it because we have populated those two mandatory, that mandatory field, which is a company field, on that specific record, right? Now let's try to create a porter beer, and you will see the difference. Watch here. Okay, sorry. We need to refresh it, because if you don't refresh it, the changes won't get reflected. So let's go here, new. You see that the company is mandatory here because it is a master detail relationship, right? That's the difference. It's tightly coupled. So remember that. It's very important to understand the difference, because you can't go and keep on, oh yeah, let me create a master detail relationship, but you should know why you need it, right? If you want a tightly coupled relationship between a parent and child, then go for master detail. If you want loosely coupled, you can go to lookup field, right? Okay. So now, we talked about, so that's about the object relationship, and so there is so let's see. So we covered pretty much everything in that, and now what we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about the Schema Builder, right? Which is a fantastic topic, and I like that topic. So Schema Builder will actually gives you visual representation of an object and field, right? So we're gonna create an object using a Schema Builder. I'll show you how to do that. It's very fun. Schema Builder actually gives you the relationship between an object and the kind of stuff. So the way to do that, so you go to Object Manager here, and you see here is a button called Schema Builder. Go here. Now, so let's click on accounts, right? Sometimes it doesn't, what really annoys me, let's see if I can see anything. I can select all. Oh, wow. It's getting annoying at times, but you see, right, a second, to clear all. You can create activity, you can create this. Okay, right, okay. There you are. So we have this object here. So you can see that the relationship, one to many and many to one, all kind you can see here. And this is the object. Let me see. I wanted to see in a smaller size, so you can minimize it. Sometimes it just gives, I mean, I don't use this much, but sometimes it's very handy, right? Because I can get most of the stuff done anyways using Object Manager, and I've written a utility or library where I can see what are mandatory objects. But usually this field is very handy for admin, even for developers, right? So I mean, I would really encourage you to use it. It's very cool. Um, so you see that one thing I wanted to stress that sometimes when you're doing a data migration, right, you need to know which fields are mandatory here, right? Because what happen data migration usually that will be the next topic we're going to cover next day. So data migration, when you're importing a data, right, using an Excel, you need to have all the mandatory fields covered. Otherwise, your data migration will fail. So this schema builder will give you by looking at this, I can tell, right, what are the required fields: account name, account owner, created by, right? And so that's pretty handy, right? So when you are migrating, you need to know let's say there are a few custom fields which are mandatory. So you will know that these are the fields which are mandatory and needs to be populated on your in your Excel document, right? So yeah, and you can create a field and you can actually add an extra field. The way I can do that, so let's do one thing, right? Let's create a new custom object, right? From, without going the old-fashioned way, let's do using Schema Builder. So where to do that, go to Elements, yeah? And this is an object here. Just drag and drop it here. Let's say I want to call it as a lager beer, right? Lager beers. Description, so allow reports, all the same options, yada, 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 right? And okay, so just save it. Right, you have an object created, nice and easy, right? Let's me maximize a bit. Right, now I need to create two fields. Similarly, what we've done, name and currency, right? So what we're gonna do, so we're gonna go to text field. So drag this text field here and drag it here. So we can call lager name, right? Help text, lager beer name, right? Length 255. Required, yes. Save. Right? There you go, it's added. Now we add a currency field. So this is called lager amount. Field name. This is lager amount, right? Required, yes. I'll save it. Right? Now let's add a lookup relationship, right? So you gotta look up here, drag and drop it here. So we have company. This is lager company related to accounts, right? So save it. Hopefully you can save it, right? So now, see, we can do everything using drag and drop. Pretty straightforward, right? If you're a kind of person who likes drag and drop, then you will love Schema Builder. It's amazing. So, I mean, I've been a RAD developer for many years, right? If you work with C#, right, you can drag and drop components and buttons. So, I mean, I find this very friendly, but I normally don't create a custom object using Schema Builder, but this is one of the options you should know, right? So, I mean, if you are someone who loves to do this way, I mean, feel free to do that. So there's an option. So a Schema Builder I usually use during integration time when I have to when I have to expose Salesforce API, and I have to know that these are the mandatory fields for the objects, so the API, the call consuming application should know, so that they can send the right JSON data set, so that the API do not fail, right, when you're doing an insert operation, or post operation. I mean, so while looking at it, you can very well know, right? So you need all this lager amount, lager name. So the created by it's an automatic field. You don't have to do about it. It's a system field. Owner as well, right? So last modified date, these are mandatory fields, but you won't be doing anything with it. It's the Salesforce behind the scene will do that for you, right? So you need to focus on lager amount and the lager name, right? So these are the two mandatory fields you need to focus on. So when you do an import, right? These are the two fields you need to pay close attention for this specific object, right? So import, we're gonna import and export. We're gonna cover next chapter. We use data import and data export as well, and so we're gonna talk about it and what happens when you have a huge number of data to import. We need to know the limitation, whether the data import is really the right option, right? Just to give you an idea what is coming in our next lecture, right? So yeah, so this is what I really wanted to cover today. So let's have a recap, right? So what we covered today. So we talked about standard object. I showed you, about accounts, how to go about looking at accounts. And we talked about fields. In the standard fields, you can delete a standard field, but you can create a custom field and you can edit it, right? And we talked about the custom object. I talked about how to create a custom object and how to enter data into the custom object using geographical user interface, right? Using an app. And then I've also explained how to add data using an Apex code, right? Then we talked about relationship, lookup relationship, and master detail relationship, right? And then we talked about Schema Builder, which is a fantastic topic, right? I hope you like this. See, for platform development one, right? The first thing I really wanted to emphasize that you need to pay attention to your programming skill, because it is a developer exam, right? And you need to know a bit about Salesforce, because if you haven't taken admin certification, right, I would encourage you to take that first before going to platform dev one. But I mean, if you wanted to jump into platform dev one, that's fine, but you need to have some hands-on experience with the Salesforce, because you're working on the platform. You need to know basic concepts, right? I can't emphasize that enough. So that's the reason why you might thinking, why this guy repeat himself all the time. I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that it's very important to understand the platform first, right? The basic, like accounts, leads, contacts, opportunities, how to create a custom object and how to navigate stuff, and what is basic idea about Lightning App Builder. And I have covered all these few things in my previous lectures. If you're interested, please feel free to have a look. And I write blog as well, so I'll put the link below. So if you're interested, have a look. Right? Okay. So that's all I wanted to cover, guys. I really appreciate your time today. So thank you, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.